the awake and aware people to control this transition and make it as easy and safe as we can for everybody in the country?
Well, first of all, those people who are aware and awake probably have a certain gift of gab. That certain gift of gab goes to talking about things that you don't normally discuss, be that religion or politics in a bar or whatever the situation may be. The other part of it is you're going to find that the people who are awake and are aware and do have an idea as to how things should be will end up basically being put in charge by the will of the people. I mean, it's very simple. Either you do want to take the responsibility for your freedom, or you don't. Now, I don't like the idea of leadership in a lot of ways, but the main thing is this. You look in the mirror every morning, and that's your leader. Now, you have to understand that there are a couple of things that goes into this. Primarily, people have been divorced from feeling different ways about things. That's been done through movies, TV, general social attitudes, etc. The basic quality that everybody needs to listen to is their conscience. This is what tells you, this is what makes women go, oh, when they see a little baby something or another, human or otherwise. It's where the big, strong bad boy on the football team takes a liking to a little kitten and takes care of it. It comes from the heart. It's similar to what people feel in the way of comfort when they crawl up on Grandma's lap. What you need to be able to do, very simply, is to give that away to everybody you know. You can also, within a group, and I'll pick a number, say 100 people. Out of that group of 100 people, there might be 10 or 15 who are aware. One of those who's aware is going to have the courage to voice, hey, we don't need to do this. We need to do this the right way. And here's the reason. Everybody has been subject at one form, at one time or another, of being squatted upon by authority. And I'm not talking about the kind of authority that is needed where a child needs to be corrected, this sort of thing. I'm talking about authority that I'm in charge and you're not. And I don't care if you don't like it. That idea of authoritarianism needs to be based on one thing. A true leader is going to do the right thing. And that right thing is going to come from within. And the part within is called a conscience. Everybody's got one. You don't step on little baby birds. You put them back in the nest if you know how to do that. Or even, like I used to do, raise them until they can fly and turn them loose. It's up to the individual to get back in touch with their conscience as to how to be, how to act. Go back to the 50s and think about it. Leave It to Beaver was a good example of a lot of things. It might be a dorky show, but it's also right on. So in terms of helping each other, you need to get to know your neighbor. You need to say hi to the guy that you see every day in the street when you walk by each other. You need to get to know people just at least on sight, if nothing else. What this does is this allows for people to be familiar enough to form a small group or an organization, and thereby someone in the group or someone knows about who needs things, it can be taken care of. This is supposed to be the giving society. This is supposed to be the helping my brother idea that was fostered at the beginning of this country. And this has to be the new take on things. Forget war. Anybody who's been to war knows better. Anybody who hasn't probably doesn't think it's all that great of an idea. And I'll give a real good simile to that. When you're playing your war game on your Xbox or whatever, pause that sucker and get a real good look at it. Then put yourself in there and think about it. you won't want to go there. Why? Well, it's good for absolutely nothing, just like the song says. So if people work together in terms of a common goal, 15, 20 people can raise a barn like the Amish do now and like we used to do in our past. If somebody really needed a new cabin, everybody decide, hey, he really does, and he's a good guy, and why don't we do that? Okay, and you just go do it. You take care of the things that need to be fixed, because if you don't fix them, you're responsible for it. There's real simple moral obligations that you make to yourself. So that's basically the answer to that one.
Yes, and thank you very much for that. You touched on a subject that I want you to go into a little bit more detail on, and I'll preface it. Anybody that spent time in the military and the veterans that are returning home from Afghanistan and Iraq currently are, having some big problems. Suicide rate is through the roof. PTSD is a big problem. And I've characterized that very clearly in my radio shows and my interviews, is these troops are returning home and seeing the disconnect of the United States from what's really going on over in those countries. And I think we should take a couple of minutes to stress why the military understands the need for this transition and why it's important to the troops and the veterans, why they know better. Vietnam was the same as Iraq, was the same as Afghanistan. I went through it. You've been through it. And I know from personal experience that what was happening on the ground in the sand was very, very different than what I saw when I got home as to what people understood was going on. And I kind of want you to touch on that or comment on it as to why the military is not going to be the enemy in this transition, why they're going to be the peacekeepers, and what the understanding is of the soldiers and sailors that have returned home because of seeing what's actually going on, seeing the real world outside of the U.S. borders. Can you touch on that?
Yeah. First of all, if you didn't go, you don't know. Now, the word know entails a lot of things. The basis for the word in the context I'm using it is the Greek word gnosko, which is an experiential knowledge. Anyone who has been under arms understands the difference between a battlefield and coming home. The disconnect is that nobody wants to know about war. It is not fit for human consumption. It's not, and never has been, a good idea. It's not generally perpetrated by men, but by governments. Taking all this a step further, when I left, things were a certain way. When I come back, I was wondering just exactly what country I had been fighting for, because it was that much different in only a year. Now, I only did one tour. I know of some people who did several. They were able to handle the extraordinary conditions of life, death, and battlefield better than I could. Now, part of the reason I couldn't go back was that I got injured and disabled pretty much. So that kind of put me out of the play. But I hear this story all the time. I got nightmares. I got this problem. I hear a funny noise, and all of a sudden I'm back in the battlefield. This is very real, and people don't understand why. Well, the reason why is that a little click-click or a little whistle or something of that nature in the conditions and under the conditions of a battlefield can mean the difference between life and death, not only for you, but other people as well. Now, troops, when they work together, get to know each other. And one of the horrors that got impressed upon me in my first month in Vietnam was having a guy that I liked real well get splattered all over me. That sort of hardened me to a lot of things. But it also stuck in my mind. Now, here's the trick. First of all, a person who comes back is no longer on the battlefield, but the switch of battle readiness has been flipped. This goes to the basis of the psychology of the individual. It's permanent, but you do not have to live with a savage renegade of nightmares and BS driving you to the brink and taking your own life, or beating people up that shouldn't be knowing you that well, etc. What the difference is this. You come back and you find out that this is a war zone of a different type. And this is the reason for my involvement. I came back and I thought the war was over. And it wasn't. It was just sneakier. And I went, man, now what do I do? Well, for a long time, I got involved with every kind of veterans thing that was going on you can imagine. And tried my best to make the VA do their thing the way it's supposed to be done. I mean, they went around the first 20 years denying that battle fatigue or shell shock, better known as PTSD today, didn't exist, when they knew very well that it did. Then they spent the next 20 years trying to figure out ways to deny paying somebody or helping them with the problem that they had created. So
now, mine was
there is a form
syndrome.
Of governance, hold on a minute, that not necessarily is up to the VA. You got to remember, they are under people in the DOD, and the DOD can tell them what to do in a large way. So the situation is this. The military, in general, is dog-tired of being the bad guys. They know better. It's called honor. It's called integrity. It's called making sure that you're watching the back of your buddy so that there's not a problem. It's called taking care of people who cannot fight for themselves. You fight for them. That sort of ideology that has always been there and has been suppressed slowly and done away with slowly. And then there's the disconnect. This is where you got drones. This is where you get into the video game of war. Most of the people that come back don't want to play war games. They don't want to watch the movies, simply because they've been there and they know, and they do not want to experience any more of that. So they kind of tend to hide. They withdraw a little bit. They can't even talk to the people that they love, simply because it's too extraordinarily painful. Well, the reason I got involved in this is that I always thought being free would be a cool thing to be, first of all. But the second part of it that kind of haunted me, and I couldn't quite put my finger on and answer it, came to me the other day. And it's very simple. I am working towards the day when I can put my guns down permanently, where I don't have to wake up in the middle of the night because there's a noise and it might be some form of enemy. That's exactly what I'm working for. And that's a personal part of why I'm involved in this and why I'm doing what I do. My oath of service doesn't have an expiration date. And it kept telling me that, and I couldn't hear. One day I heard that, and I went, wow, that's interesting. So that's basically where I'm at, and those are the reasons for the disconnect. General population don't have a war. There's not a war zone going on. I mean, other than maybe in a very extraordinarily poor in a large city, maybe. I mean, so there it is. Next.
Okay, I'm going to pass the mic to Eva real quick. She has a quick comment.
I just want to thank you, Drake, because that was very heartfelt. And also, just a little backup, when we were prepping today before the call, we did cover the idea that the war is sneaky, and Bill brought up the idea that it's actually a debt enslavement war. It's lack of information or disinformation. So